Hi, Genki Call here with your campaign tasks. Upcoming events for the week, what you can get with your event keys, and more. For the week of October 17th, 2022, let's go over the thingamabobber doohickey first. The campaign tasks. Many thanks, as always, to Hawks and Gary for putting this together. For gold, we explore Whitehelm 4 times at difficulty 8+ and use a shield weapon for 15 wins. For silver, complete 2 treasure hunts with 60+ turns and complete 2 adventure boards. Win 5 battles in a single arena run and get 30 yellow kills. For bronze, open 2 event chests, use the Holy Banner for 3 wins, craft 1 yellow summoning stone, earn 4 glory in battle, kill guard's avatar 1 time, use a Whitehelm team for 3 wins, kill 1 treasure gnome, match 60 yellow gems in battle, get 7 divine kills, and use the priest class for 3 wins. Ba-dum-bum. Alright. So I'm actually going to go ahead and open 2 of my event chests. They will be Whitehelm troops. And just to clear this off real quickly here, 1 and 2. Just, it's never happened yet that I've gotten a mythic off of a single key, but one day it's going to happen. Someday. Someday! Alright, so let me show you what you can get with your event keys this week. And I believe I have every single Whitehelm troop except for the new Glory troop, and we will get to that in a minute. Base rarity, show all, apply filter. So, the mythics that you can get, 2 of them are good, 1 of them is not as good. Guard's Avatar, really like this, great for events, does damage to all enemies boosted by his armor. Burn undead, silence demon enemies. It's the boost from his armor. He's kind of like a Rowan where you can't take Rowan. And so you use him with the Shield of Urskaya. He hits really hard, especially if you're doing an event where you have spell boost. And the rest of this is okay, but it's really just that boost from the armor to his damage. Labara is it's first time Labara has been available from event keys. Does damage to all enemies or adds life to all enemies. Huh. I'm sorry, allies. Thank you, Georgia. Allies, I meant. It's a lot of damage if you're doing a delve. It's a lot of damage if you can get it to apply to the damage instead of adding life. So that's the problem. I'm really not fond of either or troops. There are much better legendaries out there that do either or as far as that goes. Spell damage reduction is good. 4 life to all yellow allies when matching yellow gems. That's nice as well, but at the end of the day, it's just not a great mythic. However, if you need it for your power level at Whitehelm, there is that. The Archdiva, choose an ally, give them attack, life, and armor, and fill their mana. It can only be cast once. I think it's a good thing it can only be cast once. It would be way too powerful otherwise. This can be really good with the troops that have a boost off of attack, life, and armor. But the main thing about Archdiva that I'm liking is the barrier and bless when matching 4+ gems. So that is super helpful in certain situations. Thank you, dear. As far as legendaries, we've got Celestasia. I've never actually used this troop. Create 9 gems of a chosen ally's mana color. Cleanse and give them life. There are just so many better troops out there for this kind of thing. You do get a barrier on 4+ gem matches, but it's really kind of a forgettable legendary. Holy Saint Astra, however, she's good. Life and armor to all allies, create a light storm, and enchant all humans. The enchant is super nice, and then all human allies start with 50% mana, so Tesla is a human. So people like to run Holy Saint Astra with Tesla. I have a new way that I like to do things, but this also adds to the armor, so that will help with Tesla's damage. Ha ha ha! Moloch. Drain all mana from an enemy. Do true damage boosted by the mana drained. So if you drain 12 mana, you do an extra 12 true damage. It's only to one enemy. It's not great, but you know, the fire link is nice, and that's okay, the suppression trait, but overall, it's another kind of forgettable legendary. Now, you will not be able to get Silent Sentinel, the Gargoyle, the Guardian Pillar. Bum, bum, bum. Let's see what else. The Arcane Golem, or the last one is the Ethereal Sentry. Those 5 troops are only obtainable by using Chaos Shards at the Hall of Guardians in the Underworld. And yes, that is it for the things you can't get with your event keys. Continuing with things you can get, Ascendance. This is one of those newer troops that came out when they released a whole bunch of different troops all at once for existing kingdoms. Give life to all allies. Straight up, just give life to all allies. And reduce damage from skulls. It would be helpful if you really needed a healer and didn't have other ones to use. Love Gargoyle, but can't get him with your event keys. Grand Inquisitor. This guy does double damage versus demons, which is, you know, that's always nice. If you're going to run him at the front of your team, he does not have skull damage reduction, but he does damage to an enemy boosted by the number of Whitehelm allies. 5 additional points for each Whitehelm ally, so that's a max of an additional 20 points. That's quite a bit of damage for one hit, and then gains barrier. So that could help if he's at the front of the team. Gravitas. Skull damage reduction by 40%. Damage to an enemy if they're undead or a demon. Drain all of their mana and curse them. She's okay. No. Lady Saphira, you will have, if you've done the quest here at Whitehelm, she's the one you get at the end of the quest. True damage to an enemy, gain some life and attack. She does inflict frozen when doing skull damage, again, if you have her at the front of the queue, but she doesn't steal life, she's just doing damage. So I personally would never put her at the front, making this kind of useless, but yeah, no. Mercy is one that you might want to try to target. Mercy is one of the empowered mana converters, super nice for guild wars especially. Gives life to the weakest ally, transforms purple gems to yellow, and cleanses all allies. So, like I said, really good for any team using lots of yellow and having that cleanse on board, you know, in case your enemy's using Elementalist or Frost Mage or that kind of thing. Patience! Patience is our Godslayer. She's going to do 3 to 5 times damage with skulls versus bosses if you have her at the front of the queue, but she'll still do that damage even if you don't have her traded with her spells. And based on Ascensions just means that at her base rarity, she'll do 3 times this damage that's purple here. At Legendary, she'll do 4 times the damage, and when you have her ascended to Mythic, she'll do 5 times that damage. Quatramanis, light splash damage to an enemy. Light splash damage, you can read about it here. Light splash damage is really, just doesn't do that much. But it is to a enemy and a random enemy, and if the enemy is a construct, explode 8 gems. So I guess if you're going against a team from Hellcrag, this could be useful. Spell and skull damage reduction. And then Sir Alamir, he will create 8 red and 8 yellow gems, does damage to the first enemy and burdens them, 40% skull damage reduction, and he does double skull damage versus undead. So this could be good to run at Gulvania. Statue of Satan Verita. This one's our Siege Breaker, so this one's going to do the same thing as a Godslayer, only against towers. And that's Leonis Tower, that's any tower from Invasion. We'll do this 3 to 5 times damage, and if it gets damaged, it barriers all allies as well. Topaz Giant, this is our new glory troop. I'll go ahead and go over it now. damage to an enemy, then it's the same as all of the other giants we've had this season. Damage to an enemy, convert 5 purple gems to yellow giant gems. The giant gems, of course, are going to explode when you match them and give you an additional 5 mana of that color. Skull damage reduction, and creates a yellow giant gem when he takes skull damage, meaning it's actually got traits that are good to make it run at the front of the team. Plus it summons a light storm at the start of battle. Uriel, the Guardian, has spell and skull damage reduction, does death mark when she does skull damage, cleanses and gives life to an ally, creates 1 to 3 yellow mana potions, and if an enemy is death marked, there's a 50% chance to gain an extra turn. So, you know, if you've got her at the front, you happen to get a skull hit on them and they're death marked when she casts, then you can have a better chance of those potions not backfiring on you. Angry Mob is fantastic. It's a fantastic mana generator. It destroys most of the board at my level. It destroys most of the board, but it's going to destroy gems. And when it's destroying those gems, it's as if they were matched. So 41 mana for the team. You know, it's random gems, but still. It also burns a random enemy and will either summon an angry mob or do damage to the first enemy. So not only is it destroying things, there's a chance it'll do additional stuff, which is nice. And then become enraged when an enemy dies. So if you happen to have an empty slot at the front, you summon in one of these, and an enemy dies, it gets enraged, and you get an extra 50% damage on your attack with skulls. Can't get this. Bishop is going to give an ally some armor and magic, and double if they're divine. He's okay. High Paladin, however, is really nice for events because he will do damage to 2 enemies boosted by his armor. It's a 2-to-1 ratio, so let's say that my armor was 100, he'd do an extra 50 damage, and you increase that by with spells from having him in an event. He's actually super useful for those purposes. Hold on just a second. I had to have some water. He's also okay to run at the front of the team because he has skull damage reduction by 40%. But yeah, really nice for events. We've got the Mecca Mayor, who converts all red gems to green and all yellow gems to brown. It's actually a really good mana converter for certain teams. Anything that uses green and brown, it's going to be very useful for. Also starts battles with 50% mana, has some skull damage reduction, so it's not a bad troop. This was a glory troop not too terribly long ago, so most of us already have it, but Sacred Guardian does damage to an enemy and gains the same amount of armor with a little bit of skull damage reduction, but it's immune to entangle, which means that it will be good to have on board if the other team have at the front of the team if the other team is running with entangle. Solari starts a light storm at the start of the battle, gives all allies except for herself a quarter of their mana, then does damage to an enemy, and if they're undead, curse and deathmark them. War Cleric gives 6 attacks straight up, no matter what. She's going to give 6 attack to all allies, even if she is webbed. Then she's going to do damage to undead and demon enemies only, so she's really only good to use against demons and undead unless you're in arena, and you don't have to own the troop for it to show up in arena. She does have some skull damage reduction, but I guess if we were in an event that targeted undead and or demons, then she'd be good, but otherwise not so much. Archon Statue does damage to the strongest enemy. If I'm wounded, deal 8 more damage, which can be really significant in arena, again, but otherwise, does have skull damage reduction by 50% and does double skull damage versus undead. Ethereal Sentry cannot get. Paladin is very powerful. It's so powerful. This is only an ultra rare troop, and it is going to do a ton of damage because it's boosted by his armor. So the higher his armor is, the more damage he's going to go. Look at my armor. I know my armor is very high, but my armor is 111. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. So that means 111 damage plus this purple number. That's a lot of damage, especially when you're doing an event. If you're doing an event and you have those spell boost badges and medals, he will just obliterate the enemy. So good. He also gets that air link, which is very nice, and never thought to use him against dragons, but there you go. Sister Superior is another troop you might want to target with your event keys if you're going to be using them because she is empowered. She is part of the Iron Hawk meta team for Vault events, which, by the way, Vault event this weekend. Also, she cleanses all allies. She's empowered, really good for guild wars, as well as for the meta Iron Hawk team. I'll post a video to that at the end of this video. There will be a thumbnail that you can look at if you don't know what that team is. The Templar is actually very good. Give all allies armor and transforms all red gems to green to boost the effect. It's actually quite good to run with the Wild Queen. Skull damage reduction. Get extra blue mana from blue gem matches. Always nice to have some extra mana. The Penitent, death mark the first and last enemies and take damage. He is hurting himself because he's penitent. It's a little weird, but that's what he does. He does double skull damage versus death marked enemies, and he's going to target the first enemy. Throw him up at the front of your team. Let him do his thing. Let him die, something in his place. You know? And then finally, the Priestess, who will cleanse an ally and give armor and barrier to them. Yeah, it's not bad for a common troop. That's what you've got available this week with your event keys. So now you know. So next we want to go into the shop, head over to resources and grab your spoils of war. The max you can get here is 10 event keys. It's a fantastic deal. Every event key is a chance at a mythic. And the event keys are the hardest in the game to get as far as freebies go. Not counting VIP keys, but everything else. Then go into weekly event and grab your glory troop, the Topaz Giant, which I already went over. We're going to get this, for me, I'm going to get this up to mythic level. When you have the resources, start getting as many of these as you can because you're going to get these resources. Just straight up, you're going to get all of these resources. But being able to get it to ascendable to mythic means that you have a guaranteed level 20 troop that you can have for power levels at your kingdoms. That is invaluable. So that is why I do this every week. And I found out about this from a guildmate when I was pretty low level, and I'm so grateful because it has made a huge difference. And getting your power levels up is huge in this game. It really, really makes a difference, and it's why my stats are so high. So let me see here for this stuff. So Whitehelm troops get 10%, elementals get 10%. So if there are any elemental Whitehelm troops, they'll get plus 20% to their skills this week. And if you take the new Topaz Giant into PvP, you'll get an extra 5 glory.